Hey, sorry that I've been so kind of incommunicado and not putting out videos. I want to give you an update on my life circumstances and give you some pearls of hard-won wisdom about how to make money reselling clothing if you can't/won't list clothing on the internet, which is a challenge that I've had to undertake because of some health issues, and I won't get too deep into the personal memoir, because you might not give a shit, especially if you're new to the channel. Basically, I have severe neck pain issues that I was not doing a good job of dealing with in a proactive, constructive way. So I have started seeing a physical therapist who is very expensive and seems very competent, has given me what seems to be a very plausible diagnosis that I hadn't heard before. And I'm working towards improving. I am seeing gradual improvement in my condition, and today I went in and they told me, like, start listing again, start introducing it back into your daily habits, because you want to be able to build up the ability to do that over the long term instead of just ceasing to do it altogether and then jumping straight back into it. So I'm going to start listing some stuff on eBay and Poshmark again, which I wasn't doing at all for a while because it would flare me up almost immediately. I wasn't taking product photos, I wasn't listing on eBay or Poshmark. I was trying to find workarounds to make money doing reselling without having to get another job. I had to find a way to generate some quick cash or alternative income based on the clothing reselling, because that's my wheelhouse, and what else am I going to pivot to on short notice? Especially, what else am I going to pivot to that doesn't involve typing and mousing and standing at a computer? I have a standing desk. Many of you recommended that. And thanks everybody for your recommendations. Okay, so here's the actual educational part. What I've been doing to generate income selling clothing is selling online on consignment in 2 different ways, or at least starting to do that, and flipping in person at resale shops for cash. And let's start with the first one. I will not have quite as much to say about this because the timeline to get started with this is so absurdly long that I have just now, after like a month, maybe a month and a half of trying to get the boulder rolling uphill on this, to realize a little bit of income. So I've been doing it in 2 ways. The Real, which shouldn't be that big of a surprise. This is an upscale, luxury-oriented online consignment service that takes mostly only high-end stuff. I have 2 shipments out to them. They have been in processing limbo hell for, I don't know, like 2-3 weeks. So the Real takes your stuff, photographs it for you, lists it on their platform, which is oriented towards rich people or rich aspirant middle-class people who are willing to spend more money on certain brands than the eBay buyer base, the Poshmark buyer base. My understanding is that the buyers for Real operate on their own set of logic, and it's not a direct translation from eBay. So Real in terms of set prices and what people are willing to spend on what. And typically it's more. This is my impression as a complete rank newbie on Real. Typically Real people are willing to spend up on stuff that you would get less for on eBay and Poshmark, but certain brands go for less, and you're better off flipping on eBay and Posh. So waiting to see how that pans out. I live in California, so I'm able to find a decent amount of this kind of stuff to send in. I'm optimistic, again, cautiously, that I'll be able to realize some money on this in the long term. The other way that I've been trying to generate some income, and have actually generated a little bit of income, is an app called Flip with a Y, which was recommended to me actually by a couple of you. Had never heard of it. You may have never heard of it. And I could barely sleep the night that someone first pointed it out to me, because I was so thrilled by the prospect of this app. So it's an intermediary app that connects resellers with sourcers, or people trying, it was built to connect resellers with people who are not resellers, who just want to clear their closet out and make some money, but don't want to go through the process of listing it on Poshmark and don't want to get rid of it for too cheap. So the idea is you take 1 photo per article of clothing and you put up a big bundle of offerings, up to 30 items on this platform. It goes through a review process, it gets approved by someone who works at Flip, and then it's shunted out to the resellers who can apply to be matched with you. And based on a certain set of mysterious metrics, the app pairs you with the best reseller, so the person who is the highest rated, who is interested. So you send them the stuff, you pay $9 flat fee for shipping up to 30 items. I think there might be a weight limit. You spend $9, you send them the stuff, they list it, and then you get a commission, a fairly generous commission, typically around 50% of the final sale price pre-fees. So if it sells for $30 on eBay, you get 50% of $30 before the seller pays the seller fees. Seems almost too good to be true. And it kind of a little bit is more of a pain in the ass than I thought it would be. Even so, it's really pretty promising, and I think that it's early enough in the life of the app that it's relatively hassle-free. It's not as easy as it sounds, but I think it's as easy as it's gonna be. And if you're trying to burn through some old inventory, or if you have some stuff that's kind of mid-tier that you don't necessarily want to put in the time to list and you got it for cheap, I would consider Flip as an option. Or if you're a brand new reseller, you don't really know what you're doing on these platforms, you want to start kind of getting your feet wet, this is awesome. Or if somehow you're not a reseller and you wound up in this video because you're curious, this is a great option for you. It's also, in fact, a great option for those of you who just want inventory, because from the reselling side, you get the stuff for free. You don't pay the shipping charge. You do have to cut the person who supplied you with the stuff in, but it's genuinely free inventory for you as long as you're willing to share the profit. It makes sense as something that would be a great sourcing opportunity, especially if you live somewhere where you don't have access to a lot of the higher end mid-tier type clothing that I have here on the coast or on the east or whatever. If you are choked for clothing inventory and you want to resell clothing, this is a great opportunity, I think, having not done it from the reselling side, to get some genuinely almost 100% risk-free, it seems, clothing to resell, as long as you can afford the time and the space to store it. So I had this vision when I started using the app of like, maybe if this works as well as it seems like it will, I can just go full-time consignment. I can phase out this physical inventory to my left. I can no longer live under a mountain of bins in my apartment, and I can just store my inventory in other people's apartments and houses and garages. And I can do the real, and I can do Flip, and maybe this is sustainable long term. We'll see. The hang up, two issues with Flip. One, there's a really strict list of brands that you are able to sell on the platform. The Real has this list, but my understanding, again as a newbie, is that there's room to play, that it's kind of up to the eye of the person that screens your stuff whether or not they're gonna accept it. And at least according to Jack Valentine, who is really my like one source of inspiration and wisdom for real selling, definitely recommend his channel. It's wonderful. You can print out this physical form, and I've done this a couple times, and handwrite in the stuff if it's not on the official approved brand list and send it in. This is not available to you on Flip. It's super strict. If it's too flawed, like if there's too many stains, if there's holes, tears, you can't sell it. If it's not a green check approved brand, you cannot sell it. Even if it's something potentially that's really valuable, even if it's something that you know is worth money, but it's not an approved brand, you can't sell it. And super strict. There is a function that will let you look the stuff up on the app, and it'll just tell you yes, no, maybe. Some of them are maybe, which I don't really understand. So it's super constrained there. And then once you assemble your bundle, it takes at least 24 hours to get it approved. And then they will submit edits to you. They'll ask you to remove certain items based on their criteria. Then you have to remove them. Then you have to reapply. Then you have to wait another 24 hours to get it approved. And then it takes another 24 hours for you to match with someone. And often you do not match. So if you put up a bundle of stuff, that is not that appealing is technically approved for inclusion in the app, but nobody really wants. Like, I put up a bundle that was mixed gender, which I think is probably a mistake, and it had a bunch of Calvin Klein stuff and kind of lower end clothing, and nobody wanted it. So it has to be stuff that people want, otherwise they won't take it. There is a function on the app where you can flag people that you've already matched with previously, resellers you've already matched with, to take a look at your stuff. You can invite them to do so. And kind of my less desirable lots that I put up, thankfully one of the people that I had matched with one of my better lots was interested and took it. But you have to be cautious. There's no guarantee that it's actually gonna go to someone. And it's also not guaranteed it's gonna go to someone who's a good reseller. So you can be linked to their Poshmark, eBay, and Mercari and whatnot stores and look at their qualifications, see the quality of their listings, and make an informed choice of whether or not you want them to sell your stuff. So then you have to ship it, and it takes a while to get there, and then once they receive it, it's up to them, really, it seems, how long they want to take to list the stuff. So one of my people has been diligent about getting it listed. The other one, who seems more qualified, is still lagging. It's been like 2-3 weeks, still no listings up. But once you start selling, you do start realizing profit. So this, both Real and Flip, I think are long-term prospects, something to build up to. But I think will be worth it because it's a relatively very passive income stream from reselling clothing. It's a lot less work to do that than to take 8 to 10 photographs per clothing item and spend the time listing it on eBay and Poshmark yourself. And you will realize more money if you list it yourself, but it might be worth it if you, again, get the stuff for really cheap to do it on Flip, or if you just have a gigantic death pile and you would rather have it be active out on the market somewhere and you're willing to part with it, then this would be a good opportunity for you. So I'll keep you updated on how this pans out. The other thing that I've been doing is flipping clothing in person, and this is actually how I started reselling. I first got the taste for clothing profits from flipping thrifted items to Buffalo Exchange, which is a chain of secondhand clothing reselling shops aimed at younger people, people in their teens and 20s here on the West Coast. They may have it elsewhere in the country, but I've seen it in Seattle, I've seen it San Francisco, and I've seen it here in San Diego, and I think they have them in LA too. So a big chain. And I've also been flipping stuff to smaller vintage boutique shops. I live in the cool people part of town, fortunately / unfortunately, so I have, I think, 5 different vintage clothing reselling shops within walking distance of my apartment, which sounds like a better resource than it really is. Because the thing with flipping clothing in person to these reselling shops is it is entirely up to whoever it is looking at your clothing, how desirable your clothing is, and what they're willing to pay you. So as up and down and seemingly arbitrary and capricious as eBay and Poshmark are in terms of what sells when, it is 10 times worse when you're dealing with one individual person. And I've been doing this, making the rounds for about a month at this point, and you would think you would be able to find patterns. You'd be able to learn the tastes of individual buyers and cater to them. And you kind of can, but it again breaks down to the soft science of the human condition or whatever. So it's been hard and frustrating. Even with the bigger chains, like Buffalo Exchange is the most predictable on paper because they train their buyers to buy on certain sets of criteria. They're looking for specific stuff, and they have a blackboard that says we want this, 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 and generally you can predict what the like hole-in-one things are that they'll take. Like a band tee most of the time, although not all the time. AC/DC is not desirable, Motley Crue is, who the hell knows why. Like, you could kind of narrow in on what you can be almost certain they will take, but not all of it translates all the time. They wouldn't take my Patagonia long sleeve graphic shirt. Because here's the deal, like these like lower end kind of mid-tier, not quite a thrift store, not quite a boutique shop places, like I said, are catering to younger people, and they're also staffed by younger people who don't have your same training as a reseller. Their view of the market is not the same as someone who is selling to all age brackets and both genders on the internet. It's way different. They're selling to themselves, really is what it is. So it boils down in the minds of most of these resellers, or buyers rather, to do they like the thing? Like, do they like the thing, or have they been told explicitly to buy whatever it is that you're offering them? So if you bring in a pair of vintage baggy jeans from the 90s, they're probably gonna take it, even if they wouldn't wear it themselves, even if it's men's jeans, whatever. But if it's something that's kind of, you know, a margin call, like aesthetically you think it makes sense, it's tie-dye, you think it's the right cut, they'll just kind of look at it and be like, eh. So there's the me factor that you have to deal with, which is true across the board. It's true of Buffalo Exchange, and it's true of the vintage shops that are catering to an older crowd. As a consequence, it is a gamble. So sometimes you bring it in and you get the right person. Like, there's a couple people at Buffalo Exchange who know their shit, and they're not just like, no, no, no. Really, if you want to get the most value out of doing this, you have to shop the same items around to multiple places. Even the same place on multiple days if you get a different buyer. You need as many sets of eyeballs on the thing as possible, and it's really hard to keep track of who has seen what. And I tried to come up with a system to track that, but it didn't really work. So really, you're just kind of spitballing it and winging it. Also, it's frustrating because there's no consistency between the tastes of different buyers. So there's one vintage buyer who only wants slim cropped 90s style women's tops, like in small sizes. Buffalo Exchange will not take these. Buffalo Exchange only wants the baggy boxy cuts that are cut off. Specifically, they'll only take boxy cut off tops because that's all that 22-year-olds want. But that stuff is valueless here. So you're trying to like play whack-a-mole of appeasing these different markets, and also it can all just evaporate out from under you at the drop of a hat. See, because especially like Buffalo Exchange is going to be there, but these vintage shops have a tendency to just change their buying policies or just close their doors to sellers. There's one vintage shop here that I love. It's my favorite place to resell. I'm not going to tell you what it is because I don't want the competition, but there's this place that I've established something like a relationship with over actually years of going there, selling there, and they kind of like half tolerate me. That's another thing. It's like there's also the social aspect of they also have to think that you're cool on some level, and I'm not that. I'm 34 years old. I'm not wearing suspenders. I'm not wearing a vintage Western shirt that has embroidered cowboys on it. Maybe that's me in my own head, but my perception is that that is the case. I will just say it's hard to get the benefit of the doubt from these people, and over a long period of time you can kind of earn it. So anyway, this place will just decide spontaneously that they're not buying, or they'll book up solid for an entire week with buying appointments. Sometimes I can just walk in there with 2 IKEA bags full of stuff. They're happy to have me, and they'll just hand me $200 and I will walk out smiling. Other times I'll call and they'll treat me like I'm trying to sell them a used car, or they'll just vanish. Like there's this place literally right across the street from me that's been semi-reliable, and I went in there and it was just like, oh, she's just not here. She just left. She's like doing some ayahuasca shit or something. She just disappeared. And these places will just disappear. These places will also just try to hardball you after a while. Their offer will diminish, I've noticed, over time. So if you don't haggle, they kind of start taking advantage of you a little bit. So if you do this, push back and ask for more, because the offers just get lower and lower and they get pickier and pickier. So there's also this phenomenon that happens where it seems like buyers have a mental set point of how much stuff they're willing to take. So if you bring in a whole bunch of stuff, they may still take the same amount of items roughly that they would have if you had brought in 1 IKEA bag. also just a subjective judgment. You also get to deal with the delight of people having shit-ass attitudes towards you. Like there's this place that I went into today that I've been reselling to for the entire duration, and some of them are really friendly, and there's this one guy who's just an asshole. I went in, I brought in, admittedly, a lot of stuff. I called, I made an appointment. I said, I have 6 to 7 IKEA bags full of vintage clothing. I'm happy to bring these in. If it's not gonna be a burden, I'll make an appointment. And they said, yes, fine. I went in today. The guy who booked my appointment was there and just kind of at me. I even bought them cookies. I went to CVS and I bought them a little pack of cookies as an apology. I was like, I know that this is a bunch of stuff to go through. I'm sorry, like here's the cookies. And you're just kind of, can you make a full-time, consistent, sustainable living doing this? Even if you can get your clothing for really cheap, which I've managed to do, I would say no. I would say even if you are in the lap of luxury, even if you are spoiled for choice like I am in terms of these venues to flip to, it's so unpredictable, it's so wildly unpredictable that it's just not smart. And I'm glad that I don't have to do it anymore because it's just such a roller coaster. You can't stake your business on the whims of 5 to 10 people who might be in a bad mood and who are 22 years old, who kind of just got object permanence in their brain and all they want is Thrasher t-shirts. So the good news is I am improving and I am starting to list some stuff back on eBay. If you reached out to me with business opportunities, I really appreciate it, and I'm sorry that I haven't been that responsive, but my stress levels have been almost unmanageable and I just have been kind of shut down and not being a great businessman, but I'm starting to feel better, starting to kind of clear my way out here. I want to note, I found this channel last night that really, like, mentally has been turning things around for me because I've been feeling completely, like, debilitatingly overwhelmed by all of these issues just because being a full-time reseller is already almost impossible. It's so difficult, and you have to manage so much complexity in the world and in your own life, just responsibilities stacked on top of each other and things going wrong, and then to have to cope with all of that and also to have to figure out the Hellraiser puzzle of how do I do this without using the computer, without using eBay and Poshmark. It's been driving me insane, frankly, and I found this YouTube channel called Atomic Shrimp that has alleviated so much of that psychological burden. It's this guy who lives in Britain, nothing to do with reselling at all, and he does these video challenges where he'll go and buy 1 pound's worth of food for a 24-hour period, and he'll forage in the woods for edible plants and mushrooms to supplement what he finds at the grocery store, and he finds these brilliantly creative ways to make these impressive meals for no money at all. And he had this soundbite where he was saying, like, these are really popular videos, a couple of them are multi-million views, and just like such a smart guy, such an interesting perspective, such a level of competence and ingenuity in what he does. And he was talking about, like, the point of these videos is not about how to save money, it's not about how to save time because it's this big ordeal, it takes all this planning. It's about finding innovative, creative solutions to situations that you're faced with, which is kind of trite seeming, but seeing it in action and seeing the brilliance with which he approaches these problems and pulls off borderline miracle feats with nothing but his own intelligence. Such an inspiration to me. So if you are feeling up against the wall with reselling or anything in your life, check those videos. I mean, it's like some of the best content I've ever seen on YouTube. Genuinely really inspiring and genuinely kind of put a calming hand on my shoulder and made me feel like this Kobayashi Maru impossible challenge of reselling with this physical problem may not be impossible after all. So let's make it so. Appreciate you watching, and I can't promise that I will have more video uploads. I'll try to upload a little bit more, but the process physically of being on the computer editing these videos does take a toll physically. So I will try to be a little more present. And thanks for watching the channel. Appreciate it.